Alright, hello, my name is Dan, and this is Project 5 for CIS 191 at Cabrillo College. 191 is Linux Administration, and Project 5 is entitled Partitions, File Systems, and Mount. For the purpose of this video, I'm working on a VMware workstation on my personal computer, and I'm running Ubuntu 16.4. What I've done is I've gone ahead and added well, if we take a look at ls block, which lists the block devices on the file, or the hard drives on the file, or on the computer, we see SDA is where my main file system is. I went ahead and added SDB, which is a raw device, and it is 20 gigabytes. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use parted to create a partition table, and then partition the device, and then we're going to mount, or create a file system on those partitions, and then mount the devices. And so first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run sudo parted, and I'm going to specify in the argument dev sdb and my password. Okay, and now we are in parted. Parted's a command line interface. It's interactive, so I can go ahead and type in help, and it gives me all the commands. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to use make label or make table to create a partition table. So I'm going to go mk table. It's going to ask me for a type. I'm going to hit tab, and I see all the different types of partition tables I can use. I'm going to select GPT. Now, if we use print to see information about the device, if I had done it before, there would not have been any information about the partition table. Now it says GPT. So now what I'm going to do, if I look back up into the help table, we can see make part, which is also interactive. So if I type in mk part, it's asking for a partition name. We're going to type in homes. Is going to be the name. It's going to ask for a file type. I'm just going to go ahead and hit enter, because we're going to create a file type later. And then it's going to ask me for the block to start on. I'm going to type in 1 megabyte, and then it's going to end at 10 gigabytes, and that's going to partition the table or the device in half. And if we go print to get some information, we see down here that number 1 partition starts at 1049 KB and ends at 10 gigabytes. It's got a X2 file system right now, and its name is homes. So what we're going to go ahead and do then is we're going to, if we look at the instructions, we're going to create a second partition table. Second partition. So mk part. It's going to ask for a name. The name of this one is going to be web server. So type in web server. File system type, again, hit enter. I'm going to start at 10 gigabytes, and I'm going to end at 20 gigabytes. And if we use print now, we can see that the second partition starts at 10 gigabytes and ends at 20 gigabytes. If we hit print free, it shows there is free space at the beginning, that is at the beginning, and then it shows there's also a little bit at the end, really not that much. I guess I could have made it a little bit bigger, but for the purposes of this demonstration, that's going to work. So, moving along, we're going to create the file systems. So we're going to, it's not exit, it is quit to get out of parted. It says, notes that we may need to update etc fstab, but we're going to go ahead and do that later. So looking at the instructions here, it says that we need to create on, so if we ls block again over here, ls block, we see now that we have SDA with several partitions on there, and then SDB now has 2 partitions, SDB1 and SDB2, and it's showing that it's a partition. They are not mounted anywhere. So what we're going to go ahead and do is go sudo makefs, which is file system, password, and we see that the options here. So options to make the type of file system, and then where to specify the device and the size. So it says the first one is that we need to make an ext4 file system with a volume label home. So let's see, we're going to go mkfs dot ext4. And actually, you know, let's do this. We'll go, there's several different man pages for makefs. There's a man page for makefs, and then there's a man page for makefs dot whatever file system you want to use. So let's take a look at that and look at the syntax. So makefs is create a ext4 file system. Several different options for block size, inode size, different things like that. If we look at the directions, all it really specifies is that it be an ext4 file system and the volume label is going to be home. So I'm going to look for volume label, which is dash capital L followed by the volume label, and that's going to be before device. So we're going to go mkfs.ext4, sudo mkfs.ext4 dash L, volume label for homes, for the partition homes is going to be home, and then the device is going to be dev sdb1, and we're going to hit enter. And if we take a look at this, no errors, there are super block backups, there is a UUID, which is going to be important when we go ahead and edit the etc fstab file, but that information can be gotten through ls block. So we've gone ahead and made the file system for that particular partition. So then we're going to do the same thing. If we look at the directions, SDB2, the web server partition, is supposed to be a butterfs file system, and so what we do is we go make fs, once again sudo makefs dot do a double tab here. We can see butterfs is, looks like I don't have support for butterfs at this point, and there is a note here on the instructions that I can install butterfs. So I'm going to go sudo apt get install, and then I'm going to butterfs, and this is just guessing, unable to locate package, sudo install apt get search butterfs. That is wrong. Well, I'm blanking here. Sudo apt double tab apt cache double tap sudo apt cache butterfs, I think will tell us come here, not, geez, I'm just blowing it here, aren't I? Cache butterfs. So we're gonna go ahead and go to the good old Google's here, and we're gonna say Ubuntu butterfs package, and butterfs tools package is the first thing that comes up. And okay, so we're gonna try that one here. Pull this guy back up too. Okay, so let's try once again. Sudo apt get install, and it was butterfs and butterfs tools. And if I could type, that would help. Install butterfs tools. Okay, it looks like it's installing the butterfs tools. And we're waiting. And we're waiting. And we're waiting. And okay, so there's that. Let's try it over here just to keep things a little bit clean. So we've made the file system for SDB1, so we're going to go makefs sudo makefs, and then we're going to hit double tab, and we now see support for butterfs right there. So we're going to go, actually let's check the man page for it and see if it's any different than ext4. Sudo makefs.butterfs, and we see that it is indeed different. Looks like the option is going to be the same, but the formatting of the man page is different. So still the same layout for the command though. So we're going to quit out of that. We're going to go sudo makefs.butterfs -l, and if we look again back here, we see that the name of the partition is supposed to be web, so label is going to be web, and then it's going to be dev SDB1. Oh, not one, SDB2. Okay, and that looks good. Enter. And different output for the butterfs command. Still you see the UUID, which is again going to be important, but completed with no errors. So we're going to go, just to confirm, we're going to go dump E2fs to verify that. Oh, device. Dump that to dev SDB1. And of course with the sudo. And that's a whole lot of information that's pertaining to the SDB1 partition. I'm going to go ahead and assume that that's good, since there was no errors. And then it also says that we are to use sudo butterfs file system show and label web UUID. So that's the information on SDB2, which you can see there. So it looks like everything has a proper file system on it. So I'm going to go ahead and clear that. And I'm going to go ahead and clear this. And so now if we type in ls block, we see once again no changes really to this. Mount point is, they're not mounted, but there are two partitions on SDB 1 and 2. So next we're going to mount our new file systems. It says they each belong in a specific place, and for the webs, let's see, home directories are stored in home, and web server data is stored in var www. I do not have Apache, so I'm going to go ahead and sudo apt get install Apache 2. And yes, I want to continue. And so it's going to go ahead and install Apache and enable the service. Okay, so there's that. So then if I go ls var, we can see that www is in there right there, and that wasn't there before. So good to go there. So we're going to go ahead and over here we're going to mount the homes partition. We're going to go ahead and mount SDB2, which is the web server partition, onto /mount. So we're going to go /dev mount, sudo mount /dev SDB2, and then we're going to put it onto the mount directory. And actually, let's take a look right now at ls mount, and we can see cannot access mount hgfs. Let's see, cd mount ls, and I don't know what that error is. Ls block. Let's try df, and df shows everything that's mounted on the system, or all the file systems that are mounted. I don't see anything mounted on mount, so I'm a little confused on what's going on. but that is no problem. Mount is simply a mount is simply a temporary place to mount the file system. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to change directory into home, and I'm going to sudo change directory into root, sudo make dir of a mount2 ls. We can see here mount2. If we ls mount2, we see that it's empty. So then we're going to go ahead and over here mount the file system onto mount2, and let's check it now. If we go ls mount2, nothing in there. I don't think butterfs uses a lost and found, but if we use ls block, we can see now that sdb2 is on /mount2. We can also use df to see that down here it's changed. Dev sdb2 is now mounted onto mount2. So now what we're going to do, if we look back over at the directions, is we're going to copy the existing contents of var www onto our new file system, which should be mounted on mount2. So I'm going to go over here to do the command. We're going to go sudo cp -rp, and let's see, it specifies that the P option is to preserve file ownership and permissions, so that the new files do not become owned by root and with different permissions. And I believe the capital R is going to be recursive, since we're going to be copying over directories. So sudo cp -rp, and we're going to go var www, and then we're going to go do the wildcard, and then we're going to put that onto mount2. And we're going to hit enter, and we're going to go ahead and check ls. Oh, let's do that over here. ls mount2. We see HTML. Let's go tree mount2. Oh, sudo apt get install tree. And this system is apparently so new that it does not have tree on it, so we're going to go tree. Now we're going to try tree mount2, and we see mount2 HTML index.html, and then we're going to go tree var www, and we see that it should be the same, and it is in fact the same, HTML and index.html. Okay, so those two directories are the same. Now what we're going to go ahead and do is unmount and move the file system. So it says the new file system is ready to be put into service. Unmount it from its temporary mount. So back over here, sudo umount, and then the directory that it's mounted on. So /mount2. Boom. Okay. So then if we look here again, ls block, we see that sdb2 is no longer has a mount point. So it's no longer accessible, and we can again confirm that if we go to ls mount2, there's nothing in there. cd mount2, nothing in there. Okay, because again, sdb2 is no longer mounted onto mount2. Now it says we remount in the place where it belongs. And so this command is going to be sudo mount dev sdb2, and then we're going to put it onto var www, and hopefully that is going to be the correct command. We hit enter, and no errors returned. So once again, ls block, we see now that sdb2 is mounted onto var www. Now when we go into var www, we shouldn't see really any difference because we made an exact copy. We see HTML, cd HTML, ls, index.html. Okay, so that looks all good. If we double check with df, we see that dev sdb2 is mounted onto var www. Okay. So now, what we're going to go ahead and do, if I remember correctly, is we're going to repeat, and we're going to repeat this procedure for dev sdb2 and home. Be careful. Breaking your home directory can cause problems logging into your machine, so be sure that you fully verify each step before you move on. Okay, so sudo mount dev sdb1 onto mount 2. Okay, if we go over here, I'm going to clear this screen out, and I'm going to I'm going to cd back into root, and I'm going to, or the root of the file system, we're going to ls mount 2. Now the ext file systems create a lost and found directory, and we can see there that mount 2 now contains the lost and found, and that's about it. If we go ls block, we see that sdb1 is mounted onto mount 2. So then what we're going to go ahead and do is recreate this copy command. We're going to sudo, so let's take a look here. We go ls home is going to be there. We go to ls home jchain, double tap, and that's everything that's in the jchain home. So hopefully we're going to recreate that onto mount 2 at this point. So sudo mount sdb1 onto mount 2. Okay, so then we're going to sudo cp-rp, and we're going to copy the contents of the root home directory recursively and maintaining file permissions, and we're going to do that onto mount 2. And hopefully that is going to work. And it takes a little bit longer because there's more in the home directory, but it returned again with no issues. So if we go ahead and now look at the contents of mount 2, we see a home and a lost and found. And that's not exactly what we wanted, I don't think. And I see what the problem is here. So we're going to go ahead and rm-r home and rm-r mount 2 home. Descend into write protected directory. Yes, I will. And I really didn't want that verbose, but we'll go ahead and just enter all of these. Okay. So I know that was probably confusing, but let's check again into mount. So ls mount 2, ls mount 2/home, jchain. ls mount 2 jchain. And there's still a whole bunch of stuff in there, and I'm trying to remember. I think I went to rm-r mount 2/home. Yes. So that got rid of all the files, so I'm going to rm-dir mount 2 home jchain. Oh, and of course sudo and this is getting somewhat embarrassing. rmdir, I can't remember how to delete a file or folder that has files in it, so we'll go Ubuntu RM folder or directories. And let's see, to remove a directory that contains other files or directories, use the following command. Type in rm-r files at the prompt. rm-rf removes the directory. Okay, so let's try this once again. We'll go rm-rf, and then we'll go tree mount 2. Okay, there we go. Okay, so we're back to where we were, which is the mount 2 directory is empty, and I'm going to clear this out. Boom. Okay, so what I did wrong, I think, is that I copied the home directory recursively. I recursively copied the home directory, but I included the home directory. So if I do /* like the var up here, var ww wildcard, so I think that's going to take care of it. So if I do that, it's going to think again, and then I'm going to go tree mount 2. Boom. Okay, so that's what I want. JChain, and then everything below that, and then the lost and found, right? And then if I go tree home, I'm going to see the same thing. JChain, I'm going to see from here to here should be the same. Yeah, and it looks like it is. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to unmount mount 2. So back over here, sudo umount mount 2. Boom. Okay. So then I'm going to tree mount 2, and nothing in there. Okay. So then if I look back at my directions one more time, what I believe I'm going to do is I'm going to mount SDB1 onto the home directory. And just checking. Okay, I think that's the case. So sudo mount dev SDB1 onto /home. And fingers crossed, returned with no errors. If I tree /home, it looks the same as it did before. So I'm going to go ahead and say that that was successful. I mean, with, of course, the lost and found file. So that lost and found is telling me that that there's the ext4 file system in there. I'm going to go ls block. And I'm going to now see that SDB1 is mounted onto home, and SDB2 is mounted onto var www. So that is good. Now, if I go ahead and restart right now, all of those changes are going to be undone. The operating system looks at etc fstab in order to, for instructions on what and where to, or what file systems and to mount and where to mount them when the operating system is started. So if I go less, it's going to be a sudo less etc fstab, I'm going to see here, so here's the format: file system, mount point, type, options, dump, and pass. Apparently it's safer to go UUID to identify the devices. So this, I think, is going to be my my main file system because it's mounted on root there with an ext4 file system. I'm going to go ahead and expand this a little bit. Boom. Okay, a little bit more readable. So that's that with dump and pass. This is the second one, and I think this is the swap because the file system is a swap, which is, I guess, not a real file system, but it's in there too. So what we need to do is we need to add our new mount points. So what we're going to go ahead and do is, if we look at the instructions, we want to keep the same format, but we want to use UUIDs. So I'm going to use this side like I have been. So a cool feature of ls block, if you didn't remember, your UUID is ls block-f, I believe, gives you your UUIDs right there. So SDB1, ext4, it's mounted, well, the label actually, excuse me, is home, label of this is web, and here's your UUIDs with your mount points. So if we go over here, I'm hoping that I have Vim installed already on this. I think that I do. If not, we'll be installing Vim as well. Sudo vim etc fstab, command not found. Okay, sudo apt get install Vim. Now, it's not necessary to use Vim. You can really use any text editor. I learned with Rich Sims in 90 to use Vim, and so that's what I'm most comfortable on. But I know that Nano also works and is probably included in the system. So now Vim is installed, though, so I'm just going to repeat the command, sudo vim and etc fstab. Okay, so I'm going to shrink this guy, actually. So it's readable. Boom. I'm gonna makes it a little bit more human readable. So I'm going to see if I can remember how to Vim. So I'm gonna go all the way over here. If my I'm gonna add 2 lines. Okay. So UUID, and I'm going to do SDB1 first. So I'm going to copy this UUID over here. Boom. Oh, and I'm not in putty right now, so that right click paste isn't going to work. Go exactly where am I? I got so many different, well, I'll just terminal, let's see, terminal, let's actually move this. Is this gonna move? Iconify the window, there we go. Oh no, that's not what I wanted. Well, I don't know how to get rid of this thing, so, and now I'm clicking all kinds of crazy buttons. I am just going to type it in, I guess, by hand, because, oh, and I can't seem to click. I'm just going to type it in by hand because that's what I got to do. So, UUID 1B 0A34 EC dash 49 EF dash 4599 dash 898 A dash B81 B4 81B4 A28 A83C. Okay. So there's that, and so the next option is where to mount it. I'm going to want that one on home. Then the next option is what kind of file system it is, and that is an ext4 file system. And then the next option, and I guess I'm supposed to kind of separate these. The next option is, or the next argument is the options, and the instructions are saying to just put defaults. So that's what I'm going to do, defaults. And then for the numbers, he didn't really talk about what these were, so we're just going to go 0 and 3. I think the second one has to do with in what order it's mounted in relation to these other things, but I'm not too sure. And I'm going to ignore that red because when I did this before, that didn't really matter. So then we're going to add the second one, and what the second one is SDB right here, SDB 2. So UUID, and again, too many windows in a VM, so I'm just going to enter it by hand, which I know is a little bit dangerous, but we'll go ahead and verify before we write out the file. 46D51 dash 5171 4510 A F0 E 22A9 C AA 614 A1. And that's going to be mounted on the var www. And then we're going to go to that. File type is butterfs. Defaults, and then the numbers are going to be the same, so 0 and 3. And let's go ahead and just separate these a little bit, I would say. Okay, so again, 1B0, 1B0, A34EC, 49EF, 4599, 898A, B81, B4, A28, A83C. Okay, so first one looks good. SDB2, E8E46D51, E8E46D51, 5171, 4510, AF0E, 22A9CAA, 614A1. Okay. So that looks good. The note here says, be absolutely sure that you enter the UUIDs that match the ones in the file systems you created. If you did this step correctly, you should be able to verify that fstab is correct by unmounting and remounting the file systems. Again, okay, so we're going to escape Vim. We're going to write out and we're going to quit. Okay, so there's that. Now, what he was talking about with verifying, right? So if we look up here, we had to, when we mounted, we had to specify the mount point, and we had to specify the file system. However, we're going to go ahead and clear this. Now that, so we're going to umount, sudo home, sudo umount home, device is found by home target is, because I'm in the home directory, so cd, boom, ls, okay, so sudo umount /home, I'm wondering why that is. Well, let's take a look at sudo umount /var /www. Okay, so that's unmounted. So if we do over here, clear this screen, ls block, we see that SDB2 is not mounted. So because if we've edited the fstab file correctly, we should be able to sudo mount and then specify the mount point, var www. Now, I think what this command is going to do is it's going to reference the etc fstab file. It's going to see that SDB1 is supposed to be mounted onto var www, and it's going to do it without us specifying the device. Let's see. Unknown file system btfrs. That's because I made a typo. So we're going to go ahead and sudo vim etc fstab. Boom. We're going to insert, and right here is where we made, and look, it's white instead of green like it should be when I type it in correctly, butterfs. Okay. We're going to write out that file. Okay. So now we're going to do the same command. We're going to re-verify that nothing is mounted on SDB2 is not mounted. Okay, it's not. So then we're going to go sudo mount var www. Now it's going to again reference etc fstab and returned with no errors. If we go ahead and list the blocks out, we see that SDB2 is indeed mounted on var ww. Let's try it the other way. Let's go, I don't know if this is going to work, but sudo umount var www. Okay, once again, not mounted. Let's try sudo mount dev sdb2 and return with no errors, and we see that it works either way. So we can now anything that's referenced in the etc tab, it looks like, we can mount using specifying device only or mount point only, and it's going to go ahead and work. Now I'm a little concerned that I cannot double check home, and I'm not sure why that is. I would guess that it probably has something to do with the desktop environment running out of the home directory, but again, that's a total guess. Let's see. The directions say if you get devices busy errors when you working directory is not one of the mounts. It was, but again, that didn't work to change out of it. It says notice you can now mount home and var ww without passing in a device parameter. That's because the device is listed in the etc tab file. When you are convinced that your mounts are working, reboot the system. Okay, so let's reboot the system. Sudo reboot. And okay. And it is thinking. Okay, so here we are. Let's pull up the terminal and let's ls block, and we see that SDB1 is mounted on home and SDB2 is mounted on var ww exactly as we want. And so I guess what that means, what he said in class, was that for administration purposes, sometimes it's nice to have the data that you're serving up to the web on a separate device than your root file system, so that for easier management purposes, and we can see that we've successfully done that. So anyways, that is project 5 for CIS 191. This is my first time doing this, so I apologize if I was a little choppy, but I would love the feedback. If you want to leave some comments about things you would like or things I could do better, I intend to continue doing this throughout the semester to get more experience, and also to help anybody that needs a walkthrough. And then if I have time, I'll go back and do the first 4 projects. So anyways, again, my name is Dan, and thank you very much for watching.